Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. It's August 3rd, 2023. On my left is Commissioner Aaron Mays, who represents District 3. On my right is Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2. I'm Bill Rippon, and I represent District 1. Madam Clerk, what is first?
First item is item 3, consent agenda.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda. Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 4, new business A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers that total $2,615,795.50. The largest expenditure out of the voucher report is our payment to JADO, and that was $860,770.17. Other items of note are the health insurance premiums for the employees of $272,433.12, holding accounts with the state of Kansas of $200,452.81. Under the building and maintenance, we have Conroy Contractors for $73,066.69, which is parking lot pavement and repairs at the North Annex. Tanis Corporation for $26,611, which is bike racks at Stormont Vale Event Center. PS Commercial Play LLC for $21,047.92 is shade structure at Bettis Sports Complex. Torgerson Electric at $13,413.20 is electrical work at Reynolds Lodge. Finally, we have under the detention facility, this is being paid with ARPA SLFRF funds, the Pearson Kent McKinley RAAF Engineers LLC for $24,500 for engineer services for the Corrections Annex HVAC. I don't have any questions regarding the vouchers. Would move for their approval.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move that we approve the correction orders.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Public Works number 1, consider approval of a project budget in the amount of $3,166,311 and a request to solicit bids for the construction of a bridge replacement project on South Topeka Boulevard over the Wakarusa River. Project costs will be 100% funded using the county bridge portion of the 2017 to 2031 half-cent sales countywide sales tax program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. I've got 2 bridges that we would like to get started on construction. The first is on South Topeka Boulevard over the Wakarusa River, except for the 2 bridges we have over the Kansas River. This is a significant bridge. You can tell by the cost of the project at over $3 million. We'd like to let this on December 6th and then start construction early next year. I suspect work would take place for 6 to 8 months of next year. Road will be closed to traffic, but we will have signing in place so that people that are not familiar with the area can use US 75, and those locals that are familiar with the area, they will figure out a way to bypass the road closure. So with that, I look forward to your questions.
What type of bridge are we replacing? Is it?
Well, I provided a sheet to you in the packet that shows some pictures of the existing bridge. It's one of these cast-in-place concrete girders where the top deck acts as part of the structural member. They're very difficult to work on and rehab because, again, the deck acts like a top flange. It's part of the structure. We're going to replace that with a modern pre-stressed beam bridge that are where the deck is kind of separate and can be replaced or repaired significantly if need be down the road. So I think it'll be a nice addition to Shawnee County's bridges.
Kurt, this is a building that was, or bridge that was constructed in 1958. Is that about the average lifespan that we would expect from a bridge that's of that nature?
Yes. Let's see
65
here. That
years.
would put that bridge at a what, around?
My calculator says 65.
Okay. It would qualify for Social Security, so I think it's time of that type of bridge, with that type of rail, with that type of bridge deck, how it interacts with the superstructure, I think now's a good time to replace that.
Kurt, in looking at your photos, it looks like there's been some significant erosion there as well.
Absolutely.
And it's a pretty steep embankment. Are we going to do anything to keep that from happening again?
The new abutment berms will be armored with a large riprap, so I don't think, I can't guarantee for a, 100-year life of the bridge.
60 years from now, we
Yeah,
don't know what it's going to
yeah,
look like, but,
right.
okay. But we are doing some erosion control in the
Absolutely.
process as well. Thank you.
This bridge be the same width as the old one?
Yeah, essentially, yes, yeah. It's not the bridge width that was a problem, though. I detailed in my letter what all it had issues with. Again, it's 65 years old. It needs some medical attention.
All right.
I'd move for approval.
I will second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B2, consider approval of a project budget in the amount of $1,040,200 and a request to solicit bids for construction of a culvert replacement project on Southwest 107th over Elm Run Creek. Project cost will be 100% funded using Public Works Special Highway and Special Bridge funds.
Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. This bridge is a smaller project. Right now, it's a culvert. It's substantially undersized from a hydraulic standpoint. In other words, you get a good rainstorm and water goes over the road quite a bit. We're going to put a small bridge-sized structure in there, a 3-cell culvert. And then furthermore, what I think is probably more substantial, we're going to clean up that intersection quite a bit and create a nice, just squared off 4-way intersection. I think it'll make the area much safer. There will be no paving. It'll be all gravel roads. So much of this work can take place in cold weather. We have no asphalt work. So we'd like to let this project here pretty soon. Let me see if I have the schedule on it. I think it's going to be in August, and we would complete this project before the end of the year. Questions?
No. I would move for approval.
Second?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Kurt. Next item.
Item C, Information Technology. Number 1, request approval to issue an RFP for community development software for planning, Public Works, Health, and Weeds Department.
Morning, Commissioners. Mark Price, Information Technology. This request is to release an RFP that would be used primarily in the planning department, but will also affect the health department, public works, and could be used by Weeds for a community development software, kind of fancy name for basically a permitting application.
Questions? I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Mark. Next item.
Item D, Health Department. Number 1, request approval for the Shawnee County Health Department to apply for the Administration of Strategic Preparedness and Response Medical Reserve Corps State, Territory, and Tribal Nations representative organizations for next, that's all one title, did you know that? Next Generations Grant. Thank you, Craig.
Apologies to the clerk. Craig Barnes, Health Department. That's why we put all the acronyms in there. We try to make it as fun as possible for you.
Yes, thank you.
So, Craig Barnes, Health Department, before you today, asked for approval for us to apply for the ASPR MRC Strong Grant with 2 Ts. This is a 2-year grant, $50,000 per year. We're looking at funding some staff time, increasing our staff time for our MRC volunteer coordinator, up to 30% of her time, and then applying for her to get trained in a couple of additional trainings that we can offer to our volunteers through our Medical Reserve Corps, as well as then some partnerships with emergency management, and looking at also kind of coupling the CERT volunteers with the MRC volunteers to create a more robust emergency preparedness volunteer unit that can respond to all types of emergencies within our community. So happy to answer any questions that you may have today.
Mr. Chairman. How does this fall under the health department and not under emergency management? When I read the summary of community needs, specifically it says, the main focus will be on support for community resiliency. Our biggest threat in our community is weather-related damage. And so it goes on to talk about responding to weather-related damage. So I'm curious as to how this is a health department and not an emergency management.
It is a partnership. The Citizen Score came right after, that was implemented at the federal level right after 2001. And there's 4 parts to the Citizen Score, and it's CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, which is emergency management specific. The Health Department has the MRC, Medical Reserve Corps, there's Fire Corps, and then the, just lost the acronym for that one, but it's a VIPS, Volunteers and Police Service, and the city covers that. So all these actually work together in emergency management, and they're volunteer, it's a volunteer force. So they're specifically trained, the MRC is specifically trained to do medical. They're usually former nurses, doctors, or even current nurses and doctors that volunteer. And they help, for example, during weather-related cleanup, could be tetanus shots or something like that. That's very specific to them, while other volunteers are doing something in fire service or police service or even emergency management. So it's a collective, but these are very specifically trained, and that's why that's broke up in 4 different sections. So we're all one, but that's like one battalion, if you will, in that army. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Dusty. One thing I would add to that as well is what we saw, Sky Reed, who is our volunteer coordinator that came in front of your body for a work session, talked a little bit about MRC. We also tap into veterinarians. So in weather-related things, if there are animals that are displaced or things of that sort, then we work with veterinarians in our communities to provide resources to those animals in the case of weather-related issues as well. So, but any other questions that I can answer for you today?
Don't have any.
Nope. I'll move for approval.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next item.
Item E, Emergency Management. Number 1, consider approval to reject the 1 bid received for 027-23, and hereby give permission for Emergency Management to issue another RFP later this year for the EOC bathroom project.
Dusty Nichols, Emergency Management, very self-explanatory. Thank you, Clerk. We talked about this during our budget hearing too. So we were just following that guidance that we received. So I reject the 1 bid we have, and hopefully we get additional bids. And it'll be issued as soon as possible. It says later in the year, but it'll be as fast as we can.
I would move that we reject the bids
I'll second.
and go back out for bid again.
Absolutely.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thanks, sir.
Next item.
Item F, Sheriff's Office. Number 1, acknowledge receipt of correspondence from Sheriff Hill regarding Contract C 245-2023, renewal of Contract C 328-2018 for body cameras and auto tagging and storage with Axon Enterprise, Inc. The total cost of this renewal will be $580,966.80, with a payment of $116,193.40 for the first year and $116,193.35 for the subsequent 4 years out of budgeted funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shane Hubler, Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. The first thing I'd like to say is what we'd like to do is actually change this from budgeted funds to a CIP. This was something that you had approved previously for CIP funds. A little bit of confusion as to why we asked for budgeted funds. We grayed that out in our budget because we do have a grant pending that is potentially going to pay for this. Those grant funds have not come through yet. At this point in time, we are in the final stages. The grant's approved. There's just not been any disbursement at this time. So I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding that or the cameras themselves.
I think the Audit Finance Department might have a question or comment or correction.
Just to clarify, it's, they were previously approved with 2023 capital outlay funds in the CIP. So it's capital outlay funds, there's about $223,000 set aside out of the 2023 cap outlay budget.
So while you're there, if we do, because the sheriff's office has applied for federal grant for the purchase of these items, if we are approved for that federal grant, are we going to be ineligible for reimbursement since we've already purchased it, or do we just reimburse ourselves once we receive that?
We can do the reimbursement once we receive it, unless the terms of the grant say you cannot. But so long as the grant says that it can be for a reimbursement, we can do that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No questions, I'll move for approval.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item G, Commission Number 1, consider Angela McCarty's appointment to the Community Action Board.
Yeah, this is a person who's, she's works with our Department of Corrections, and I think she'd be a good fit for the Action Board. She's works a lot with people who have low income, and that's what this Action Board specializes in, so I think she'd be a good fit in there.
I have met and worked with Angela many times, and so I agree. I second the motion.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item G2, discussion of preliminary 2024 budget.
Good morning, Betty Griner, Director of Administrative Services. And I thought I would start our discussion this morning by going over kind of a summary of the budget process for, just for the public. In June, the department submitted their budget request to Audit Finance. Then in July, the commission had budget hearings with each of those departments and each of the nonprofits that are requesting money. Those are recorded, each of those hearings is recorded and are available on the commission webpage. And now we're to the point where we're ready for a discussion to develop a preliminary budget, not a final budget, because there will not be any approval or even discussion of a final budget until after the public hearing, which is on August the 21st. But this will just be to preliminarily come up with a budget for the public to see. We will start with the requests of the departments and the nonprofits. Then the commission can make motions for adjustments to those amounts. Those adjustments would be for a department at the department level or at the nonprofit level. We don't get into line item approvals in our process. That doesn't mean that your adjustment may not apply to a certain line item in the budget request, but we will record it just as an adjustment to the total budget of that department. We will continue this until you are ready to approve a preliminary budget. Then on August 21st, there will be the public hearing at 5:30 in the evening so that the public can come and express their thoughts. Then the next Board of County Commissioners meeting on August the 24th, you will have the opportunity to make any changes you want and hopefully to adopt the final budget then. So I have a worksheet here for us to work with and work through. I'll kind of go over this. This worksheet is a compilation of all of the requests. If you'll see on the left-hand side here, let me see if I can use this little thing here. There we go. Up here, category and department, that column, it lists the different categories, which are categories that we have are law enforcement, recreation, public works, public health, administrative services, debt service, and special liability fund. Those are the different categories, and as we go through our monthly reports, financial reports, that's what we look at. Then underneath each category, we have the departments that are included in that. Law enforcement category includes the counselor's office, community corrections, Department of Corrections, district attorney, and such. So for each of those different categories, we have multiple departments and/or nonprofits that are requesting money. So then you go, I have a series then, let's see if I can get this to work again. Okay, then you have different columns here that we will go through. Okay, the first column is the 2022 final budget, so that is prior year. Then, and that one's in the light orange. The 2023 is our current budget for this year in the white. Then 2024 budget requests, that's in the blue. Those are the requests that we've received. The column, as I mentioned, for commission adjustments. And then the last column in the pink is the 2024 preliminary budget. If we go down to the bottom here, let's see, scroll down clear to the bottom, you'll see a total budget line here. The total requests that we received are $142,389,715. And next I have shown, well, let me, before I say in that, we take this total budget amount, the total budget requests. Then we subtract from that all of the non-levy revenue that the county receives. That's all the fees and those types of revenues we receive throughout the year. Then you subtract those before you get the calculation of the levy amount that is needed. So even though the budget request is for 142 million, we will not need to levy all of that because we will have that other revenue. Then we factor in the neighborhood revitalization rebates. Then we also factor in the expected tax delinquencies. For 2024, I'm using 2%. For 2023, I used 1.5%. We're seeing through 23 that was a little too low. So what I am using for an estimate for 24 is 2% tax delinquency rate. And so then we come up with what we say, or what I am calculating as an estimated mill levy. I'm saying estimated because the mill levy is set by the county clerk in her office, and that is based on the total budget amount that you will approve in dollars, and the final assessed value. And she does not get that final assessed value until November, and then that's what she uses to determine the mill levy. And Cindy, correct me if I say anything incorrect.
That's absolutely correct.
So that's why what I'm giving you here is an estimated mill levy based on the preliminary assessed valuation. What I've also done on this spreadsheet is, since we will be going down this spreadsheet, I've also, up here in this right-hand corner right here, I'm also showing the estimated mill levy up in that corner. So regardless of where we are on this spreadsheet, you'll be able to see where you are as far as an estimated mill levy. So I think, unless there's any other questions, I think we're ready to start the discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we begin and before we make any other adjustments, again, just what would be the amount that we would need to maintain at the current mill levy and not going above our current mill levy?
Okay, to maintain the current mill levy, you would have to reduce the requests or make negative adjustments of $440,500.
So just from a starting point, if we want to maintain where we're at, we need to remove at least 440,000
Yes, correct.
from what's been requested.
Yes, correct.
I've noticed in a couple departments, several departments, we have positions that have been requested. And these are additional positions, and it looks to me like they're duplicating positions that we have existing that aren't filled. Is that correct?
Well, in some cases, they're requesting a new position.
Right.
Where they already have vacancies in that same type of a position, that same position. Is that what
Alright.
you're saying?
Yes. Okay.
Yes, they can't request, you know, it's a new position, but they also have current active positions that are just vacant in that same, of the same type.
Okay. One of the departments, the health department, they have a number of these. What, do you know the amount that, for those extra positions?
I know that I can, I'm not sure in theirs if what their duplicates are.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I know that Ms. Fisher's here from the Health
Yes.
Department, but if we were to look at it, their overall request is for an additional 1,401,000, and it's a 65% increase. And when we were going through the budget process, what was explained was that these were positions that had been funded by COVID funds and that COVID fund had expired, but we were wanting to continue the programs that were started under it and those employees. And I don't, Teresa, if I misspeak, but again, just kind of a brief recap of why we're looking at a 65% increase to the Health Department.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Teresa Fisher, Director of the Health Department. So just a couple of things. We did not request any new positions this year, so no new positions were requested. Of our positions, yes, we do have those vacant. So in my budget process, in my presentation, I did go through those that were currently not filled versus those that have been vacant. So those that we were advertising versus not advertising. The main reason for our increase is because we did have multiple COVID funds. And so, yes, some of those positions were funded through those. We have 2 of those positions currently filled from when we started our infectious disease division back in 2020. The others are not currently filled nor being advertised. The other challenge is that that COVID funding has really sustained our current operating cost also. So it has not only filled those positions and paid for those, but those grants have also covered our current operating cost. And in addition to those COVID grant dollars, of course, we also had our reserves prior to becoming a part of the general fund this year. So that is the reason for the large request and increase, not due to new positions, but due to the funding, the grant funding that is going away and not having those reserves.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Teresa, if we were to eliminate those unfunded positions or to eliminate that part that is used to subsidize the budget, what would be the impact of that from a local level to the Health Department, or from the Health Department to the local level?
Yeah, depending on how much is eliminated, as again said in my budget presentation, we cannot continue at the capacity that we are. So we would be looking at potentially either closing programs or having a very much reduced program that we would be able to offer in a variety of areas. We do have grant funding that covers a portion of our programs, but most of our programs, excluding our WIC program that receive grant funds, have a required match or are using our general fund to help cover the remaining costs for those. So it would be a difficult task for my department to look at which programs we're either going to eliminate or which programs we're going to really cut back on.
The Health Department recently was recognized as an accredited health department. Would these cuts and elimination of programs affect your accreditation?
That's a great question, Commissioner Cook. We are in our first annual report, so it's not even due until later this fall. There are standards that we would have to keep up, and I would have to go through each of those standards piece by piece to determine if it would affect our eligibility to keeping our accredited status.
And I think that if I understand kind of where Commissioner Rippon's questions are, having gone through the budget with him, is if we can't fill the positions, why leave the positions open? And why not just close out the positions if we're struggling to fill them?
Yeah, great question. Again, I think just because this is our business, and so just because right now we're not able to fill these positions doesn't mean that we won't be able to. So we're in a very different, unique time, especially with nurses. And I have to think on the positive side that we're going to come out on the other side of that, that we are going to have individuals that are interested in pursuing public health as at least ways an option to start their career or maybe to end their career. Or like myself, that is your career. So we continue to explore new advertising options. We have been able to hire individuals here and there. It's not a fast hire by any stretch of the imagination.
We knew these grants, though, from COVID were going to end, and they were funding a lot of these positions. And I just don't know if we need all those positions now. I mean, we're past the COVID crisis.
Agree. So just as a reminder, so our COVID division, the positions that we currently have, and I apologize, I got up here with all of my notes, but I believe we still have 5 positions that are left from that division. 3 are currently not open. So those 3 positions are not open for applications even, and 2 of them are funded. So again, these were used for more than just those positions. These COVID grants over the past several years since we received them were used than more just to fund that. They were also used for operating cost.
And those 3 that are open still, what, I'm looking at your salary and wages report. Which 3 are those, so I could note them?
They would be our certified medical assistant, our epidemiologist, and accountant 1. I believe those are the 3.
I had a notation that all of their vacant positions, now I totaled about $400,000 in their budget of the positions they have vacant currently. So that probably is all 5?
I had it closer to 6.
Is that right? Or, because that would be more than those 3.
That's probably our advertised positions also right now.
Okay.
Commissioner Mace, you said you had about 6?
Well, I'd need to double check my math, but yeah, I had just under 600 is what I had added up, but maybe 1 or 2 of them have been filled since then. I did this when we were having their hearing, so.
Do we need to get maybe clarification with Teresa and Angela Lewis about how many positions we currently have unfilled?
So,
We can
Teresa.
give you a list of those unfilled that we're both advertising and not advertising.
And of these vacancies that are listed on here, it looks like 9 of them are RNs. From what I have down here. And I don't know what these abbreviations are, but 3 of them are RN, and then it has ID in parentheses.
Yes. We currently have 3 nursing positions at 10th Street that are open. 1 is not yet advertised. We're updating the position description. So we have 1 in our infectious disease division that would be responsible for all of the communicable diseases outbreaks. We have 1 in our tuberculosis program, and then the 1 that's not currently advertised is in our immunization program.
So according to this, there's 3 in the tuberculosis program and 3 in infectious disease.
No, there would be 3 total. I'm not sure what
Here,
you're
let me
looking at.
give you a little more information here. So I'm showing general fund share of unadvertised vacant positions. We're showing 5, an office assistant 2, CMA, community health planner, epidemiologist, and accountant one. That totals $227,574. Those are the ones that are unadvertised. Those are 5.
And I wasn't necessarily referring to just unadvertised, but just vacancies in general, based on what again, we had these printed out, I mean, what was it, 2 months ago probably, so
Yeah.
I'm sure things have changed
I
since
believe we
then, but-
have 4 nursing positions open right now. So we have 2 in the clinical services, we have 1 nurse-family partnership and 1 maternal child health. So not 9, we have 4 current, and then a 5th one that's having a position description review.
Okay.
And you say, how many of these are unadvertised? 5 positions are unadvertised?
5.
Yes.
And why aren't they being advertised at this point, or are they?
Well, those are the ones that we had, the certified medical assistant, the accountant one, the office assistant two. Several of those were previous COVID positions. And so
I see.
looking ahead, we determined that it was probably not in our best interest to fill those, knowing that we might not be able to sustain those positions. Not all of those positions, but those.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, those 5 positions, maybe if there was cuts to be made, that would be possibly it.
The only one that is on that list that is one that I still really need to explore is our community health planner. So we had a community health planner that started just before the pandemic, and unfortunately during that pandemic time we lost that position. But that position is very important in working on the community health needs assessment, the community health improvement plan, and really with the Heartland Healthy Neighborhoods organization. So of all those positions, that's the one that I feel is most important that we would be able to fill and move forward.
What is the cost of that position?
About $56,000 plus benefits.
And that's just the general fund portion.
Correct.
So I assume that position,
I think that one was 100%
That's 100%
general.
general.
okay,
Okay.
okay. So 56,000
Yeah,
Yes.
56 for 86 plus benefits.
So,
plus benefits. So more like 70? Something like that.
around 70.
With benefits, I'm just
Yeah, spitballing.
All-
spitballing it here.
It's an official term. What would be the amount for those other 4 positions? And do we have, just spitballing here again?
Yeah.
About 100,000.
How
plus
much?
benefits.
How much?
So 100,
150.
150.
Yeah, 150
Total or per position?
total.
Total.
That's again, the general fund portion. There may be some portion that's covered by grants. So we're just looking at the portion that would be covered by the general fund,
Okay.
you know.
Commissioner Mays?
There's still a lot of questions, and I feel like the information I have isn't quite accurate. I wouldn't mind maybe just deferring this towards the next meeting on that particular budget, and
Get your update.
maybe dealing with some of the ones that we feel a little more comfortable approving today.
Sure.
I still have just a lot of questions about the health departments.
Commissioner Mays?
Yeah.
Along that same line, I would ask that the health department prepare for us a assessment of if there was a cut of 1.4, 1, 4, different levels, what is the community impact of those cuts? And I think that's one of the things that I'm missing as a commissioner right now. It's easy to look at the budget and say, we're gonna eliminate $1 million. But what's the consequences to the health department? What's the consequences to the community? And I think that's what I really need to be able to see before I would vote for or against a cut. And so I would ask for that assessment from your department. If you did not receive all the requests, if you received half of it, if you received a third of it, what's the impact to the community?
Thank you.
All right.
And I think we can also get you updated numbers of what is currently vacant and what those
Commissioner
numbers are.
Ruppon?
Sure.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask the planning department to come up, because along that same line, as we're talking about that, the planning department has a request for an additional position. And in speaking with the director, Mr. Donnie, about that, we spoke yesterday about if that position was to go unfunded, what would be the impact to the community for that position if you did not receive that additional position? And so I'll turn it over to you.
So the position that I'm asking for is for a planner. We don't currently have a quote-unquote planner in the department. And so that person would be someone who could be doing plating, subdividing, other items across our planning department that are handled by me right now, honestly. And so what we would be looking for if we had this additional planner for next year would be the potential to take on additional platting and subdividing and planning activities that might extend that encompass the 3-mile radius. My desire as the planning director would be that we would communicate with the city of Topeka and see how we might reduce the 3-mile radius. And if we do so, that's going to make a big impact on the work that my office has to do. And so if I don't get this planner position, I would have to not move forward with those plans and communicate with the city on whether or not they would be willing to reduce the 3-mile, maybe to 1.5 miles or even more than that.
So that would be, having that additional person is critical to your moving forward on removing that 3-mile
Correct.
inner boundary.
Correct.
For those of you who don't know how this 3-mile boundary works, the city planning department really has jurisdiction 3 miles out from the city limits. And so what you have is a large number of people in that area that have no representation whatsoever. They don't get to vote on city officials, but the city is making their decisions for them. By reducing that maybe to 1 mile, then these people would have a little more representation from our planning department. Then, of course, like I say, it put a lot more burden on our department. But I think the city really, their interest is that 1 mile. I mean, that's really what they need. And two, I don't like the big circles. If we can define it by roads, I think that'd be so much better.
I agree.
The circles just cause trouble.
It's a huge impact in regards to the differences in policy with how the city wants growth to occur versus how the county envisions growth to occur. And so we have, situations that are going on right now where there are people that are just on the limits of that 3 mile that are, they're 3 miles outside of the city, and they're being limited on how that growth can occur. And it's frustrating for developers and for people who own the land to not be able to do certain things because the policies of the city prohibit that. And so this would allow us to give a little more flexibility to the people in that area.
It's my understanding too, if that one of those circles just touches their property, then they have
I try and work pretty heavily with the city. If it touches the circle, if it's a small portion of it, the city is usually pretty willing to say, well, no, this is probably going to be the county's jurisdiction. But there are circumstances where it may cut it in half or it may cut a corner off of it. And if we did it by roads, it would help so that a landowner would know whether or not their full piece of property fell within that. And of course, that's all stuff that has to be negotiated with the city and discussed on what it is that they're willing to do.
The bottom line is if we reduce it, you're going to need help.
I'm going to need help.
Okay.
And one position at this stage, I will admit, one position will help, depending on how the impact is overall. But, that's going to take time over the next year or two to figure out what that impact might be. But for right now, at least having the one would make a huge impact for our department.
Mr. Chairman, I think Commissioner Mays has something.
Commissioner Mays, go ahead.
So you've got an open position still, right?
Correct. Yes. And so that position is actually coming in front of you next week. I was hoping to have it on the agenda today, but I just didn't get the chance to get it posted for today's meeting. We have actually made some changes to that position. Well, I have made changes to that position. The one that's open was previously held for many years by one person. And when that person retired, I took a chunk of those duties away from that position and had to transfer them elsewhere because they were items that had to be done. We can't stop building permits. And so that person did all the building permits. Someone else had to take over those responsibilities. So the position has actually been reworked, and I'm bringing it back in front of you next week to ask for a reclassification of that position and give it a new title. That position is very important to us because it is the person who will handle all of the floodplain work as well as be the manager or the overseer of all the zoning work. And right now, those two items are highly time consuming for myself and then with other people within the department. If we want to continue our community rating system with the floodplain, giving people discounts on their flood insurance, that's very important. And we have to do a lot of floodplain development permits, and so that person would be highly responsible for that. And then also with the zoning, you know, some examples of things that have taken up a majority of my time over the last few weeks. There's a mobile home park that's inquiring on a sale, and mobile home parks haven't been allowed for 30 years, but if you have a mobile home park, you're grandfathered in. So I'm looking at regulations from 1956 to determine how this mobile home park is going to operate. Those are items that I'm currently working on that this zoning manager could actually handle. And things like doing, you know, when a house burns and we have fire insurance proceeds, we had one recently, you know, that zoning administrator would go out and do that work. Or we have another parcel where they have a bunch of mobile homes and cabins, and they're trying to figure out if they can move tiny homes and such in. And so those are items that currently I'm having to do a lot of work on that actually a zoning manager should do. And so that position, I feel like the work that was underneath that position previously that we took away, that position had too much work under there. And so not all of the work was being done by that person. It was being done by the director and other people within the department. And that's not suitable for a job. It was overloaded, and so we've taken some of those responsibilities away and made it what would be an appropriate position. And I personally don't think that we could add that planning work to that position and make it work. I think it would be, again, too much.
Okay, just a few minutes ago, we approved an RFP for a community planning software.
Yes.
How's that gonna affect your staffing?
It's going to, well, it won't affect the staffing. It will streamline the process. Currently, what we're doing is we do everything still via paper. We do a lot of emails, accepting applications in person in our office, and then people emailing them in. But what happens at that point is that we receive that, and then a person has to go in and type all of that information in. We do a lot of research on the various parcels to make sure that what we're approving is appropriate and that it can be placed where that it's at. The actual portal will allow the departments to have a workflow and to work together without a disconnect of sending a bunch of emails. Say, for instance, right now, when we do a permit, we send out emails to the health department, to Public Works, sometimes to the city, other departments for review of those permits, and then they do their job and then they send them back. Well, it's all being done via email, and so there's a lot of stuff just going back and forth in emails. If we have this portal, what's going to happen is that it will automatically send it to that other department, and that department will open up their portal for the day. They'll see the list of things that they need to review. Once they review them, it checks it off, and then it automatically shows up in everybody else's workload. So it's going to be paper reduction, streamlined processing, and then making things easier for the public because they can sit at their computer and type everything in and do it all on their computer. Once, some developers come into our office all the time, and so every time they sign in, every permit that they've ever gotten will be in this system. It'll be easier to search and to find documentation. I don't believe that it's going to reduce personnel or workload because someone still has to process and right now one person is doing that processing.
Any other questions? No. Good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
A question for Betty Griner, Audit Finance Director. During our CIP discussions, Commissioner Mays had raised a point of whether or not the county could establish a fund for Stormont Vale Event Center, and maybe in the amount of $100,000 to help subsidize community groups that would want to use rental fees or to offset rental fees for the Stormont Vale Event Center. Would that fall under the Stormont Vale Event Center operating budget, under owner business building expense, or something all new, independent from that?
It could be something independent. It also could be something that would be under general expenses, that would just be transferred to a job ledger to hold, to use for that purpose.
And I'm also wondering if that wouldn't be something that Stormont Vale, the OVG 360, just reviews on their own, or if that's something that comes before the advisory board for them to maybe give input as to whether there should be fees or subsidies, or, I'm just trying, since we've had that discussion, I've had a lot of questions about where does that fall within our budget?
Yeah, it could fall either place on there. I think it would be up to you to set however you would allow those funds to be used.
Yeah, so, excuse me, Kellen Seitz, Stormont Vale Event Center, OVG 360. To your point, I think that number is probably a little high, if I had to give you my own personal estimate. If we're looking at a fund to subsidize the more community-specific events that might not be able to otherwise afford the rental cost of transitioning that event into either Heritage Hall or Exhibition Hall, I think that number of events is probably smaller than we're thinking. I don't think that a fund of $100,000 is probably appropriate for that. I think we probably could get by, closer to between $40,000 and $50,000 for that type of subsidy. For the other events, which are privately promoted events, we can work with those promoters to transition those events into the other spaces and find ways that both fit within their financial constraints and their budgets and the available space openings that we have in those other facilities to make those events happen.
Well, a lot of the discussion centered on removing people or removing events, limiting the activity that was going to occur in Agricultural Hall.
Yeah.
And so that you would remove the bulk of the activity that was occurring in Agricultural Hall to maybe Exhibition Hall or to other parts of the campus. And if you're going to do that, there's an increased cost. I mean, Ag Hall costs less than Exhibition Hall.
Certainly, yep.
And if you're trying to move a Fiesta Coronation from Ag Hall to Exhibition Hall, how is that group going to be able to afford that cost increase? The Fair Association is constantly coming to the Shawnee County Commission every year, talking about the increase in costs of usage of the Stormont Vale Event Center, and that's almost 95% of their entire budget is just in rental fees back to the county. And so if we're going to not have the fair, if we're going to encourage the Fair Association to not use Agricultural Hall, but to move them to other parts of the campus, how are they going to be able to offset that expense?
Sure, yeah, and I mean, we can come up with some metrics and some financial data of what those transitional costs might look like. I'm thinking more specifically things like Coronation Ball, the Community Thanksgiving Dinner Project, which, we've already started to transition that piece of business into Exhibition Hall, as well as some of the more culturally centric type events, things like, quinceañeras or festivals, cultural festivals, things of that nature that have taken place in that space in the past.
I'd like to just clarify a little bit, because I think this is not exactly, it's similar but not quite the conversation we had. I did not recommend moving $100,000. I said at the time, we were talking about a renovation of the bathrooms at Ag Hall for, I think, proposal was $175,000 or something. And I said, and when we heard from Matt the other day, he was saying the bathroom's only a problem when there are large groups there. When there are events that have several hundred people, that's when it's a problem. When we have exhibition shows, when we have hot tub shows there, and the fair even, it's not a crowd. it takes up space, but it's not hundreds of people. I said, I would rather spend that money to move those large events like that over to another venue. I did not say that I'm gonna wanna spend an additional $100,000 subsidizing events. But what I'm saying is the differential there, because there are events that are traditionally held there. And the Thanksgiving dinner is one that's very important to the community. I recognize that we need to have that event in our community every year, but Ag Hall is not the right venue for it. And so, obviously, the Thanksgiving dinner is not something where there's a surplus of cash that they're working with. They operate on donations. That I would be willing to fund the differential for those two venues for the Thanksgiving dinner. The Fiesta, also a culturally significant event that's historically, traditionally held in Ag Hall. That is an event. I'd like to maybe get a list of those events
Sure.
that we've had in Ag Hall year after year and see what the difference would be. I mean, you're saying maybe 40,000.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing that on paper.
Sure.
If we could.
Yep, absolutely.
Any other comments? All right, thank you, Kelly.
Back to your question of where it would fall. I think if this is something you decide you want to do, it depends on how much authority and control you want to give to Stormont Vale Event Center. If you just want to subsidize those events through their normal subsidy, then you would just add it to their operating line. If you want to have it come to you to be approved on what you're subsidizing, then I think probably it would be something that would come out of general expenses, and we would set it aside in a job ledger that would come to you, and you would approve spending that. So I think it depends on, as you as the commissioners and as the commission as a whole, how much control you want on how that money is spent.
All right, yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and kick things off and say that I'll make a motion that we approve the Register of Deeds budget.
I would second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. All right.
I'll also make a motion that we approve emergency management's budget as presented.
Let me look at that real quick.
And that's under law enforcement up at the top.
I got it. I found it. I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, or by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. I would,
Go ahead.
I would move that we approve the counselor's budget.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. I would also move that we approve the appraiser's budget.
And they were adding an additional appraiser,
Yes, they
right?
were adding an additional appraiser.
Because, potential retirement, right?
I think there was a retirement involved there.
Is that what it was, Steve?
I have an additional appraiser and a reclassing, and that total was $78,645.
And that's because you had 3 people that were eligible for retirement. You want to make sure that,
That's it. Steve Bauman, County Appraiser. 3 of our 4 commercial appraisers are in real threat of retirement,
in 2025. So we're trying to plan for that as opposed to more expense later with trying to hire contractors to help fill that gap.
Okay. I'll second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
I'll make a motion, we approve Safe Streets budget as presented.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
I'll make a motion, we approve drug court.
Did you say drug court?
Drug court, yeah.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. I would move that we approve the Fair Association's budget.
Second.
A second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move we approve the district court request.
And that was with the increase to jury pay was the,
Yes, increase the jury pay, that was about 100,000.
Also increase to court-appointed counsel.
And yes, that's about 150,000. And that was the increase to the jury accountant, jury-appointed counsel is equivalent to what our increases to our employees.
And that was 2 additional attorneys too, is that,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
And that's because
that's
there's additional courts now, you need additional attorneys.
And also to maintain the attorneys that we have in having good appointed counsel.
Now, the 2 additional attorneys were contract attorneys. They were not
Oh,
employees.
contract. I see.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
And who made the motion?
I did.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve the weed department.
let's talk about weed department for a second.
Okay.
John, could you come up real quick? So, your budget calls for adding an additional position.
Yes, sir.
Did you still have a vacancy, right, for one applicator position, full-time?
Correct, yeah.
And it was my understanding that maybe we needed to increase the pay on that position to fill it. Is that still?
Yeah, we were working through some things to try to make that happen, and I think working with HR, we're gonna be kind of where we're at on it. So, currently it's unfilled. We've had one applicant we interviewed last week, and
Well, and we don't need specifics on that, I guess, but, the other thing is that we've heard about, we're talking about buying drones and using drones to do some of the more difficult work. Do we need to add an additional person, or do we need to just shore up kind of the job security of the people we have?
Commissioners, I think we need to add an additional person. With all the contract work that we currently do, it just puts us further behind. Mother Nature's a factor in that too. So when we look at our daily workload, never knowing whether we're gonna go that day or not, we're planning out now. We're behind from probably about April, and it's July already, and we're just now in our second round to treat all of our contractual agreements, not just our county roads, and trying to get to them the third time already, and it's July is gonna, it's a little tough.
Well,
So,
theoretically, though, shouldn't those contracts pay for the positions that are being used to fulfill them?
Theoretically, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't necessarily want to subsidize the state of Kansas's highway weed treatment.
Well, so each contract pays a portion of it, and it's really not, I guess they pay for a lot of the equipment and then a little bit of the labor. So it's broke out between the equipment, labor, and chemical. We can't recover the chemical, any cost share on that. So when they pay for the chemical, they pay for the chemical, and then a portion of it's labor, and then the other portion is equipment, so.
John, if you have an additional applicator, do you have the equipment for that?
We do.
Okay.
We do. Right now, one of our intermittent help works about 7:30 till 11. And so he gives us a few hours in the day, and then that truck sits there the rest of the day. And so that's what this full-time, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
Oh, that's what this full-time operator would do, is fill that truck all day long.
I'd also make a comment that the notes that I have is that the amount that he's asking for is a little bit under 38,000, and that's because it was also using some intermittent costs, so it's not the total cost of the new position. It's also not going to fill an intermittent position and use those funds towards that also.
Correct.
So,
So as Betty said, that reduces our intermittent staff down to 0 for applying chemicals. It keeps one intermittent in the office to do the chemical sales, but then we would have no more intermittents on staff. Eliminates several problems. It eliminates now them not being licensed, operating under my license, and makes all the applicators be licensed themselves, and then eliminates that, so.
All right, I think we have a motion on the table. Commissioner, which commissioner?
I made the motion.
You made that motion? I'll second this. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. All right.
Move to approve the ambulance. It's a contract.
that is by
Yeah.
contract.
Okay.
Yes.
I will second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve the animal shelter, the Helping Hands Humane Shelter.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries 3-0. Okay, animal shelter.
Move to approve the Conservation District.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
I'll move to approve the coroner.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
That one's also by contract.
And I would move that we approve community resources.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve the Public Works Department.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve Health Access.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, Motion carries 3-0.
I'll move to approve TARC.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve the Extension Council.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
I'll move to approve the social programs for the elderly.
Let's see.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve social service grants.
Let me see here. I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
I'll move to approve audit finance.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
I'll move to approve IT.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve the treasurer.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve the county clerk.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
On the elections office, do we have an adjustment that was made since the budget hearing?
Yes.
The 25,000?
Yes, there's a $25,000 reduction from their request, and this here is showing that as such. We did come to an agreement on that facilities will be taking care of those items instead of the elections office.
Then I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Wait,
What?
was that facilities management or elections?
That was
Elections.
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 All right.
I'll move to approve the BCC.
Second.
I'm sorry, what was that? Oh,
Board of County
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 Commissioners.
Commission.
Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. I would move that we approve the HR, Human Relations.
Second.
Motion's been made by, oh, go ahead.
I wouldn't mind talking just a little
Okay,
bit more about
sure.
that one, if you don't mind.
Sure.
In fact, and I know we've got an active motion in a second, but just for discussion purposes, I think I'm at a point where really all of the other ones, I feel like we probably need to talk about. I feel like we've gotten most of the low-hanging fruit. approved.
Outside of contingency and debt service.
And those are usually like the last things we do, right? I mean, well, debt service obviously is kind of a given, but
debt service
it's,
and
there's not much wiggle room
special
there.
liability fund also is usually some.
But in terms of departmental budgets, I feel like we probably ought to talk about the rest of these individually.
On the since we are discussing human resources with a motion made in a second and having discussion of human resources, I know that this was for the recruiter, which is the bulk of that, and as well as looking at more advertising for the county to fill our positions, which we've had success in some areas and still struggling in other areas. So, Angela?
Absolutely. We are looking to add a person, as in my budget presentation. If you look at what SHRM would recommend for HR departments, it's 2.5 people for every 100 full-time people that you have. We have 6 full-time people and 1 intermittent, servicing over 900 employees. So whenever Mike or I are working on a grievance hearing or some other employee issues, we are away from the office and the day-to-day part of it. If we had another person present who could work on positions, work with the departments on getting positions posted faster, and going to recruiting events and things like that, it would certainly help us.
I know that has been it's been a comment made by a number of departments, is how can we get our positions posted faster? How can we get them filled faster, and just reducing that lag time?
Yes.
And so by having this additional person, we're going to be able to get to these faster?
We will.
Sure. I don't know that, like, in my mind, I mean, I don't doubt that you need another person. I don't know that a recruiter is the role that you need, though. And I don't want to pretend to be an expert on your department, but I know that there are a lot of other functions that you and Michael do other than recruiting. I mean, is this too narrow of a job description?
So what we would post it as is an HR specialist too. And they can do many things at our office. That would just be a portion of it. They could also work on the diversity, equity, inclusion. They could work on, I've already said posting, but everything that goes into getting a job posted, the PDs. Sometimes it takes us more than a week to review a PD so that it can be posted, just because we're working on other things. And that really causes a lag.
And then on the advertising, the countywide job advertising, I'd be interested to see how much we're spending in each department on that right now.
Okay.
Because I feel like some of the problem that we have just in general, not just with job postings and things like that, is that our departments are pretty siloed in a lot of cases. And so I feel like, you know, advertising jobs on a countywide basis, or a countywide budget might be a better option than having each individual department do it themselves. Because I feel like then it becomes that, you know, one department may have triple the budget than another for that. And so I wouldn't mind looking at maybe how much everybody is spending in each department on that, and maybe seeing if we can aggregate that somehow under your department.
I'll be happy to get that information for you before our next meeting.
Thank you.
Is this something you'd like to see before a vote?
Yeah.
Okay, I can withdraw my motion. And we'll study it some more.
Move to approve debt service.
Second.
Yeah. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve, again, this is a preliminary budget, but at $1 million for contingency.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve the special liability fund, which is the $100,000.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Can we take a moment, maybe talk about the planning department, because I want to go back, because now that we've
Certainly.
got to narrowing our focus down. We talked, Joni Thadani spoke to us a little bit about what that position and why that position is there. I think that all three of us at different times have talked about that 3-mile boundary and wanting to assert more control into that 3-mile boundary. We've all experienced it in frustrations as commissioners with our constituents. And if we're going to take a more active role in that, we need to be able to fill that position. And so I think that's pretty key to her budget.
Yeah. Joni, you also had an intern in that as well?
I do. So we actually have an intermittent position that has been an existing position for quite some time, but we haven't funded it for a period of time. And so what I did was I included the fees or the funding for that intermittent position so that if we elected to hire someone in that position, we could. It would be part-time. I had some communications with an intern that works for the city of Topeka and found out what, where she went to school, what, are other people looking for internships, what kind of pay they receive. And there are people out there looking for internships. And that's something that would be potential support role. I've tossed it around and thought about whether or not an internship would be helpful within our department. And I put it in there just in case we could add that in as a potential, because I think that it would be helpful.
I think it'd be a good recruiting tool. Possibly.
It would be a potential, well, and that could lead into the potential for a planner, yes.
Okay.
So, Joni, the opening that you have now, we've posted that a number of different ways now.
Correct. So originally, when I first took over as the director, we originally had modified that position to a deputy. That didn't work out in getting appropriate or the type of person that we needed in the department. So we downgraded it then back to what is considered the planning and zoning administrator position. And honestly, we haven't really recruited for that position much lately. It is out there and it's posted. I don't believe that I've had an applicant on that job for 6 to 8 months, and I haven't advertised it and pushed it because my focus at that time was changing and reorganizing the existing positions within the department. At that point, I reorganized and reclassified Jolie's position from administrative assistant to the planning and development coordinator. And then we eliminated our OA2 position and created that planning specialist. I needed a little bit of time for funding purposes to not have that position filled to make sure that my budget could comply. And we're at the stage now where we've got some consistency in the office with the positions that are there that now we're ready to go ahead and start recruiting again, which is why I'm bringing that position back up in front of you. It's not that we've been out there recruiting and pushing and that position is just vacant. We really haven't done a whole lot with that for several months now. And frankly, the job is not the job that it needs to be because there are duties in there that person will no longer do. And so that position doesn't really exist anymore.
So, with that position, I mean, we posted it as a director's job. Was it that we just weren't paying enough? Is that why if our memory serves me, we only got maybe 2-3 applications for that?
I don't really know the answer to that. We had it published, nationwide on some websites that recruit to places outside. Maybe it was pay. I don't really know the answer to that. The people who did apply were significantly more local. They just weren't what I would consider the right fit for the department. And, and there was very few applicants over a period of time. And so at that stage, based on the need to really get the positions filled within the department, we kind of swayed away from that position and focused more on the others. Because the deputy director would not have been in there doing the permitting and the other stuff. So that position, we really just had to focus elsewhere and instead of recruiting that one. I mean, maybe it's because of the pay, but, you know, whether or not the deputy director is the right position, I'm not sure. You know, we had a really good candidate for the deputy originally, but that person chose to stay in the job that they were in where they were at because they were able to get a little more pay and take on some responsibilities. And for that person in particular, they, it wasn't about the money, you know, because I said, well, if I, you know, can give you more, and it wasn't about that. I don't know how else we could recruit that position. And frankly, we closed that one because it didn't seem viable for the office as we reorganized things. And I've been there now for a year, tried to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And, you know, we've reorganized each position as we've maneuvered and hired someone and job duties are taken on. And right now we're in a good place if we can get this last position filled.
And, I mean, I think we're seeing a theme here, not just with your department, with all of them, is that it's hard to justify funding new positions when we're not able to fill the ones that are currently open. And it's not just your department, like I said, it's everywhere. We've got plenty of requests for new jobs, but we've also got tons of vacancies. And we hear it over and over again, how hard it is to hire people. And so, you know, saying we're gonna hire more people, it just adds another layer of difficulty to Angela's already understaffed department as well. And so I just, I'm just having a hard time with this one, I guess, and with many others.
Yeah,
so.
and I respect that and understand, and I would just add that, you know, as I said, it's not that the current position that I have open, we really haven't been recruiting that one because it's not the position, like I don't have that position anymore. It's an open position, and until it got to the point that I was able to reorganize the office and really get it situated to what that position needed to be, it's out there posted, but we haven't been recruiting it. And so I feel more confident now that we have a new position written, I come in front of you and we talk about it, we get it posted back out there, that we have the potential to put it out there nationwide, publish it, see what we can get in to get that one filled. And then with the new position, it's not work that we're currently doing. It really is work that I hope to undertake in the future, and it's planning for that work that we could take on. And so they're two very different positions that would work together and would really help myself, the work that I'm able to do. It would really be a benefit for our office and for, I believe, the community to have that position, because it would allow us to look outside of the box and potentially do something different with the office that we haven't done before. And so it would be something different. And, you know, it's not that I need to help cover the work that we have now. We're, you know, with the current position, if we get that one filled, we can handle the work we have now. This would be doing additional outreach to try and bring new stuff in to help the constituents and the people in our community to achieve the goals that they have with their land.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is a question for Betty, perhaps Jennifer. To address the concerns of Commissioner Mays of, if we allocate funds to a department and they aren't able to fill that position, it ties up that money where it could have been used elsewhere within the county.
Yes.
And I think ultimately that's kind of the concern, Commissioner Mays, you're getting to. And I mean, how much funds are we gonna tie up? How much money are we gonna tie up if we can't fill those positions?
Well, and also, when a department is given a budget, they can spend that money on anything within our policies. So even though you budget that, maybe you're budgeting it for a position, if they can't get that position filled, they would be able to use that money for something else, should they fall, you know, should they go through the right channels.
So my question was going to be, can the county establish a new hire fund to set a certain amount aside that departments would be able to draw from to fill those positions, rather than tying up that money elsewhere? And again, I'm just trying to think broadly.
We could, you would have to establish what it would be used for, or when it would be used, if it would be a first come, first serve, if it would be, and I think what we would do is, if that would be something, we would probably just, set up under general expenses, and then at such time it was approved, the budget would transfer from general to that department.
And
I'm
again,
thinking off the top of my head here, but,
and again, I'm trying to strike a balance between, we know that we have positions that we would like to fill. We can't fill them because of the current job market, but again, we don't want to leave our departments, we want to make sure the money goes to the right purpose.
To clarify, so you're saying countywide, we aggregate all of the vacant jobs and put those salaries into a fund rather than giving them to the departments directly, and then allocate those funds directly to the departments as they hire?
I'm just trying to think this through. Again, this is off the cuff as we're talking here today.
I mean, we'd certainly find out how much we're spending on vacant positions by doing that, but
well, now, I was thinking he was mentioning for new positions, not
Yeah,
for
right.
vacant positions.
Yeah, but you mentioned that money can be used for other purposes.
If you allocate
So-
it to the department.
So if you couldn't fill a position, say in planning, then you wouldn't have that money available then for like overtime for somebody, then possibly.
So,
Or a consultant, if you
Or a
needed a
consultant,
consultant to come in,
yeah.
or a contract labor, I don't
I
know.
don't know.
okay. And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as we hold that discussion for planning, I want to kind of contrast that to maybe like our elected official, the district attorney, who has a higher position. He wants to add an additional attorney, but as an elected official, once their budget is set, they're able to spend their money in really any way that they so choose within their department.
Well,
as
they have
opposed
to follow our policies.
But still,
But as long as they fall within our policies. Now, he does, as DA, he has some special, I'll let Jim answer, has a little-
Like normal with county government, there are exceptions that prove every rule, and the district attorney can have his own personnel policies if he so chooses. And there is not a statute that affects him as a state executive officer like there are statutes that apply to county elected officials. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's the point you're raising.
Yeah, but as far as if he's not using that for personnel, if he would then use that money for any other type of expense, he would still have to comply with our purchasing policy, is the point I was making.
I don't know if I'm being asked to weigh in.
I am, you are.
But I told Betty I just needed to stand up. So I don't actually have any vacancies as I'm standing here before you. And that's the first time I can say that since 2020. So I'm pretty happy about that piece. I'm happy about the space that we have that is currently being renovated and updated. The new position that I have requested is the conversion of an intermittent employee who has served as a legal intern over the past year, who has just taken the bar exam, accepted an offer of employment, and is currently at my office. So I'm not looking for people. I have the people I need. I just got to be able to pay them.
So most of this increase in your budget is just reflecting salaries that have
Yes, sir.
gone up.
well, and the vehicles.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
we did
right.
move something from the CIP. That's right.
And that's for leases, and
Leases.
that's reclassifying leases to be under your budget as opposed to part of a CIP.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that was, as you remember, he was looking at purchasing vehicles. We as a county, and especially me, I am really encouraging the departments to lease vehicles. I think financially, it's a better way for us to go. I think we questioned that initially and have really proven that to be the case. So we have made an adjustment to his budget request after the CIP discussion and have added $77,000 to that request, just for those leased vehicles. That's in addition to what he was asking for this new position,
That's correct.
just to clarify that. Another thing to think about, back to Commissioner Cook's comment, if you were going to set some type of a fund aside, if you were going to do it for vacant positions, then you have the problem that you're looking at the number of vacant positions now compared to 6 months from now when the year starts. So it would be difficult to start, I think, set something aside for all vacant positions. Now, if it was for new positions, that would be easier to manage.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would move for approval of the district attorney's budget.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
And just for clarification on that one,
Yes.
the original request was for $392,000 for the new vehicles, and we're down to $77,000 for the leases, right?
For this year,
For this year.
or for 24, I'm sorry, not for
Yeah, for
24.
next year.
That's an annual reflected cost. The total cost is still gonna be significantly less, so Betty is correct.
Okay,
I think leasing vehicles is a much smarter way to go about it.
okay,
All right.
thanks.
Well, on these remaining, do you want to give this more time to mull these over? Or?
I mean, when you go through it, they're almost entirely staff-related. I mean, community corrections, adding 2 new probation officers, Department of Corrections, adding 10 correctional specialists, a reentry officer. I mean,
DOC are not adding, they are not adding any,
wait,
oh wait, they're adding 1 reentry officer at right under 80,000, including.
well, they're vacant positions
They're
now, but they're
vacant.
not funded, right?
They are, as far as their request shows all vacant positions being funded.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, that's,
Their request includes
should
all
clarify
vacant
that.
positions, and they're asking for only 1 new position that is a reentry officer at, with benefits right under 80,000.
but then I think the sheriff is adding 5 new positions.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we need to, in my opinion, I think we need to look at this staffing stuff just a little bit more.
I would agree.
And how would you like to go about getting that information? Would you like each department to send you information between now and next Thursday, or how would you like to, what kind of information would you like, and how would you like to go about getting it? Or do you want them to be prepared to talk to you about it next Thursday?
Well, I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if we could see the vacant positions that they currently have, and then positions being requested, and what those positions are, and that would be helpful, I think.
I think it'd be nice on the vacant positions to see how much they pay, or how much they're advertised at least. Be good to know how long they've been vacant. How long they've been advertised, I guess you could say, because I know we've got vacant positions that are not even advertised. I think those are.
Anything else you'd like to see?
Mr. Chairman, just as a roadmap, I want to make sure that I'm accurate here. what we have remaining to address that has not been motioned or seconded today. Community Corrections, Department of Corrections, Stormont Vale Event Center, and those are two parts, the operating. and the-
Sheriff.
Huh?
You skipped sheriff.
Oh, Sheriff, sorry. Sheriff, Stormont Vale Event Center, and those are two parts, the operating and the owner building expense. The Planning Department,
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, thank you. Parks and Rec, Planning Department, Health Department, Vallejo, our general expenses, our capital outlay, facilities, and human resources.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So we'll attack this next Thursday again. And, all right. Did we have a motion on the, did I withdraw that one motion?
You did, you withdrew
Okay.
yours.
All
yes,
right,
and
good
that's-
enough. All right.
And
Just
they
wanna
don't
make
have
sure
to.
we didn't leave
that's-
anything hanging there.
Yeah, as long as you were the one that did the motion, you can withdraw it.
Okay, next item.
Item 5, public comment.
I don't have anyone's, oh, Carol?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything. My name is Carol Marple, and I honestly had not come to say anything, I just came to listen. But of course, I feel compelled to say something. First of all, as a taxpayer of this county, and I think I can safely say I speak for 95% of the people that pay taxes in this county, I can't afford any more. You know, my input costs, and we farm, you know that, are just through the roof. Now, you talk about a mill levy, okay, then you'll say, well, that's not much, but property values will go up. So it will be a lot. I've listened, finding people is a problem. I think you've all said that. It doesn't matter what you offer. I myself would like to see some of our current laws enforced. I live in the county. We have a huge problem with dumping. And I completely understand why the recycle containers were removed, because people abused them. But they just come out and dump it in my ditch, and I have to take care of it. If we have laws against that, they need to be enforced. We have laws against property thievery, you know, they need to be enforced. These are what concern us in the county. There are laws on the books, they need to be enforced. You know, the deputies can come out and write something up, you've been robbed. Well, if you catch the robber and you don't slap on the wrist, it does us no good. Noxious weed, I'm very familiar with that, and John, I'm not picking on you. I think he needs more people. You know, we're expected to control our weeds, musk thistles. I think you all probably drive down 29th Street, 29th and Wanamaker going west. Have you seen all the thistles that are up in that retirement home? Have you seen all the thistles behind Sam's? If the people, the developers that own this land are not made to be responsible for their weeds, I can't control my weeds. You know, it's very frustrating for us in the county. We pay a lot of the taxes, you know, because we own land in the county, more than a house. And our needs are not being met. And another aside, I sat at a meeting yesterday, which is not something you've discussed, it's something I've thought for a long time. It was about the Washburn Rural Middle School that they're building. There is no communication between the county, the city, the school district, and utilities. And I find it very frustrating to pay for a road or moving of utilities and then to have to come back a year later. And we gotta move those utilities again because, oh my, we didn't talk about this with that entity and they need here, so we're gonna have to move them again. It's a waste of my money. I work too hard for my money. I mean, I think you're trying, but I think there's room for improvement, a lot of improvement, and you need to think about the folks in the county. There are specific needs that we have. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else wishing to speak? All right, next item.
Item 6, administrative communications.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. Just like to remind the Commission and the general public that this Saturday, which happens to be the 4-year anniversary of my employment here at Shawnee County, we are celebrating that by opening up our HHW for our Saturday collection event. So come on out, get rid of your household hazardous waste. This is the first one we've had since June. Address is 131 Northeast 46th Street, and for more information, please call 286-4381 from 9 until noon this Saturday. Thank you.
Will there be cake?
But you're welcome to wear a party hat.
Okay. All right.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kellen Seitz, Stormont Vale Event Center and OVG 360. On Saturday, after you go to the household collection event, coming over to the building, we have our Tacos and Margarita Festival. It is selling very quickly now as we approach the weekend. We're sold out of VIP tickets. There's a whole bunch of taco and margarita punch cards, different offerings that you can get. There's about 12 different types of tacos, 8 or 10 different types of margaritas, luchador wrestling, and vendors and a DJ. That's from 12 to 5. And then this week we just announced our Nightmare on the Boulevard Haunted House, which is coming back for October. This year's theme is Carousel of Pain. It opens October the 6th. Will run every weekend all the way up through Halloween. So looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Good morning, Jake Fisher, Shawnee County Elections Office. Just wanted to remind the commissioners and the public that we will be holding our canvass from the primary election on the 14th of August, a week from this coming Monday at 9 a.m. And obviously, commissioners, your attendance is absolutely necessary for that. It should be a very short canvas. We only had a small number of provisionals, so just wanted to remind everyone of that. General election is coming up on November the 7th, and so that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? All right. Commissioner Mays.
Nothing from me.
Nothing from you, Commissioner Cook?
Nope, not today.
There will be no work session on Monday. I think Betty had mentioned earlier, we're going to have a public hearing for the budget, the 2024 budget. That'll be August 21st at 5:30, right here. So I want to make that announcement. We don't need to vote on that Monday session, do we, or eliminating that?
You don't have to. It'd be better if you did.
Okay. I will make the motion. I'll make the motion that we eliminate, or not eliminate,
Cancel.
cancel, that's the word, cancel the Monday work session.
The date? Could you give me the actual date?
August 7th.
I know, I just didn't want to put words in his mouth.
Okay, August 7th. Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 7, executive session.
We do have a need for executive session. I'll move that we go into executive session for a period not to exceed 15 minutes for the following reasons. For consultation with an attorney for public body or agency which would be deemed privileged in a client or attorney-client relationship, specifically to discuss possible litigation. We designate 15 minutes for that. Action is not expected following this executive session. And let's start that at 10:50. That gives enough time? Or not 10:50, let's just set,
Let's go
let's just go for 11 o'clock, and that should give us enough time.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. 3-0. we are back in session. No action is taken at this time. Thank you.